Welcome back everyone, it's Charlie. This is going to be my new Marvel Spider-Man 3 video. They just made a big announcement. It's a huge Easter egg for the plot of the movie and a continuation of some long-running Spider-Man Marvel movie Easter eggs. Tom Holland was also talking about their original plans for Spider-Man Venom crossover, so we'll break it all down. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're doing a movie ticket giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave your biggest theory about Spider-Man 3 on the video. We'll just break this down top 5 style, starting with number 5. If you missed it, Marvel recently announced that the working title of Spider-Man 3 is officially Serenity Now. That'll ring some bells. It's based on the Seinfeld episode called The Serenity Now. In that episode, George is advised to scream Serenity Now every time he gets too crazy with stress to keep his blood pressure down, and throughout the episode, George just faces ever-increasing circumstances that cause him to get really pissed off and freak out more and more, so he keeps yelling Serenity Now louder and louder over and over again. This plays into the very long-running tradition Marvel has of using Seinfeld Easter eggs in the new Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, and it also informs a little of what the plot is going to be. So number 4, the long-running tradition of Seinfeld Easter eggs started with Spider-Man Homecoming when they named the movie Summer of George as the working title after the title of the Seinfeld episode. The reason why they named Spider-Man Homecoming Summer of George that time wasn't so much because the plot of Spider-Man Homecoming was similar to the plot of that episode. That time it was mostly because the director John Watts and the crew during the pre-production on the movie spent a lot of time talking about Seinfeld episodes while they were in development. So of course, when it came time to film Spider-Man Far From Home as a way to continue that tradition of Easter eggs, they named the movie Fall of George when Spider-Man Far From Home was in development. Even though Fall of George isn't the title of an actual Seinfeld episode, it was just a way for them to continue the joke into the next Spider-Man movie. It's kind of like their tradition of putting home in the final title of all the Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, implying that the title of Spider-Man 3 will eventually be something with home in the title. The new working title for Spider-Man 3 Serenity Now is much closer of a reference to the actual plot of the movie while still continuing that Seinfeld tradition. Side note too, because we know that they're making Spider-Man 4 with Marvel and Sony together, it also kind of implies that they're going to be using home in the title of that as well. So we're running out of big ideas. I'll talk about that in a second. How many titles can you come up with home in the title that actually sound like good Spider-Man movies? Number 3 though, the Serenity Now title plot Easter egg is all about what's happening with Spider-Man after the events of the Spider-Man Far From Home post-credit scene where J. Jonah Jameson and Mysterio publicly out his secret identity and frame him for Mysterio's death, making it open season on Spider-Man for the entirety of Spider-Man 3. Obviously part of the teaser is that they'll find some way to clear his name and prove that Mysterio was lying about him, but that's only after they spend most of the movie on the run from new Spider-Man villains and more potential Sinister Six villains as part of the larger Marvel-Sony moves that they're making with the Sinister Six movie. That also kind of gets into the Spider-Man Easter eggs that we saw during the Morbius trailer and the implied crossover Spider-Man references during Venom 2, even though we're still waiting on the Venom 2 trailer. If they put that much Spider-Man stuff in Morbius referencing MCU stuff, real safe bet that there's even more of that going on during Venom 2. Number 2 WTF, the Spider-Man vs. Sinister Six connection from the Morbius trailer in the Morbius movie is part of the larger Marvel-Sony plans for crossing Tom Holland's Spider-Man from the MCU over with Venom. I say Venom, but it's really anybody else that they want to put in those movies because you have Carnage, you have Morbius, and any other potential spin-off characters that they develop. Tom Holland was recently doing interviews for another movie that he just made, so here's a clip of him talking about the original big plans.
The future for Spider-Man was still very bright with Sony, and we had a really wonderful idea of how we could sort of transition into a Spider-Man without the MCU, and Tom Rossman and Amy Pascal were really confident that they were going to do justice and make a film of the caliber that Spider-Man requires. But that said, I'm really glad to be back in the MCU and to have the team back together because I kind of feel like it's where he belongs now. I'm really grateful that Bob Iger and Tom Rothman allowed me to be a part of the process of bringing him home. It was a pretty cool experience and also the best bragging rights ever. I saved Spider-Man. Yeah, I was really drunk. Yeah, I saw Bob Iger recently, a couple of days ago in LA, and I said to him, I said, when you come to London, I want to take you to the pub to have a pint and we can talk about how Spider-Man it's going to continue to be an amazing franchise for both Disney and Sony.
Remember when they made it seem like Spider-Man was out of the MCU last year for a hot minute, then all of a sudden the CEOs got involved and fixed it, they signed a new sharing deal? Originally, Sony had the rights to use all the Sinister Six characters that they wanted to, so putting all the Vulture, Sinister Six, Spider-Man scenes in the Morbius movie was part of them hedging their bets for the future of Tom Holland's Spider-Man early on before they signed the new sharing deal with Marvel. But then Marvel and Sony came back together just as they were getting ready to finish the Morbius movie, so they made just a few minor changes to how those Sinister Six scenes played out, made them a little more connected to the events of Spider-Man movies in the MCU, like Spider-Man Homecoming. And now, in the words of Amy Pascal, way back during Spider-Man Homecoming days, it's now much more adjacent to the MCU than it was before. So that's how they're sort of connecting the Sony Venomverse to the MCU. We'll start to see all that stuff play out, and it'll make a lot more sense when you actually sit down in the theater and watch the Morbius movie. The other good news is that the Venom 2 trailer is going to be coming in the next couple months. Expect the same type of Spider-Man Easter eggs in the Venom 2 trailer. Even though the majority of Venom 2 is going to be dedicated to establishing the Carnage symbiote as the new main threat of the Venomverse, the Sinister Six stuff is kind of a separate thing from Carnage right now, so just consider them two separate ideas. I don't know if Sony has any plans to try and shoehorn Venom or Carnage or both of them into the Spider-Man Sinister Six movie. And even though Sony confirmed that they're doing Spider-Man 4 eventually, and it'll be with Marvel set in the MCU, they didn't say if that would be a regular solo movie or if it would be their full-blown Sinister Six movie. We won't find out about that till after Spider-Man 3 comes out, so don't worry about that too much right now. But number one, WTF, who are the villains Spider-Man will be facing in Spider-Man 3 that will earn the Serenity Now Easter egg? Right now, Kraven is still the lead rumored villain just because the director John Watts spent all of the Spider-Man Far From Home press tour referencing his love for the Kraven character, saying how much he wanted to use him as the main villain of Spider-Man 3. It doesn't get any clearer than that.
It's gonna be awesome. Like I'm so excited. I don't want to give anything away, but I'm so excited about it.
The only bigger teaser they could drop would be to release an official poster with Kraven on it called Spider-Man 3. Another deep-cut Tobey Maguire Spider-Man Easter egg there. Joe Manganiello really does want to play Kraven in the new Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, so we'll see if they let him do that, because that would bring it around full circle. If you don't remember, he played Flash Thompson in the very first Spider-Man Tobey Maguire film.
So as a comic book reader, one of my favorite comic book stories of all time that's so dark and twisted and unique is Kraven's Last Hunt.
Oh, yeah.
That one is... It's maddening. It's insane. And what an amazing ending and great turn. So I mean that's one of those that I would be. They're gonna have to make that. It's too good of a story not to tell.
So Kraven's apparently gonna get a solo movie, but in the same vein that Venom is, where it's not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
They still want a Marvel Cinematic Universe Kraven.
Well, you have to have him cross over at some point because Kraven's Last Hunt is too good a piece of material to back. It's like, Wolverine, the Frank Miller Japanese Wolverine. Like you can't not like tell that story. You have to tell.
Is that a role you would go for if given the opportunity? For sure.
What, Kraven?
Yeah.
You kidding me? That would be like a dream role.
Plus, you have the giant Kraven Easter egg in the Morbius movie that we saw while they were filming, and since Kraven is an OG Sinister Six character, Sony also wants to do a whole solo movie with him. They haven't announced any official casting for Kraven yet, but if they do, I will totally make a video for it. And there's also the possibility they try to include some more Sinister Six setup during Spider-Man 3 and tease the impending Venom crossover movie somehow. I'm not actually expecting Venom to show up during Spider-Man 3, but I expect them to explain a little of how Spider-Man is going to wind up crossing over with Venom, if that involves multiverse travel, a portal somehow, or some other explanation. But post all your theories in the comments. How much Sinister Six and Venom teasers do you think that they'll put in Spider-Man 3, and what do you think the final title of the movie is going to be? Spider-Man Homeless? Spider-Man Home Alone? There are only so many titles with home in them that you can pick from. There's a bunch of big Marvel stuff coming up, so I'll try to get to all those videos as fast as possible. Everyone click here for my new Marvel Spider-Man 4 announcement breakdown, and click here for my brand new Venom 2 Carnage first look video. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay awesome. Serenity now.